So I'll be tasting with Jane Lopes tonight, who is not really my really good friend, also my mentor. We used to work back together in New York at 11 Madison Park. She is a wine director at Attica Restaurant in Melbourne, and also just wrote an amazing book called Vignette, which is an illustrative wine memoir, which I'll recommend everybody to take a look at.
Today I'm tasting with Andrey Tolmachyov. Andrey and I worked together at 11 Madison Park in New York years ago. He was a server at the time and really just was starting to get interested in wine, so it was really fun to work with him then, and it's fun to see him now. He's managing the wine programs for all of Curtis Stone's restaurants and event programs.
First wine I picked today is Fela Plat Vineyard Chardonnay. So I wanted to pick something from California. Living out here, I'm pretty big supporter of everything that happens from here all the way to Sonoma and northern parts of California. And I think this wine will give Jane a little bit of a trouble because it is coming from Sebastopol, pretty high elevation vineyard between 400 and 800 feet. And Aaron Jordan from Fela, it's a excellent winemaker, so I think she might take it to an old world, but we'll see.
You know, I didn't bring classic wines, but in a way I think that's better. I think when there's classic wines, there's a lot of pressure to call it right. The wines I brought, he probably is not going to call kind of dead on, but I'm just interested to see how he kind of parcels them out.
I think this Chardonnay is a very classic example of what Chardonnay is. Still to this day, I'm kind of on the fence between what California or Sonoma or in general Chardonnay from California, it's classic. I think it's very proper Chardonnay. I just don't know how classical would you call it being from California or from Sonoma.
So the white wine I brought is a Friulano. Macra, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, is the producer from Friuli. So this is a very classic Italian white grape. You wouldn't necessarily see it on an exam though, which in a way is a shame because there's all these really amazing native white grapes that you would never see on an exam, and instead you see Pinot Grigio, which I heard a quote once. It's Pinot Grigio is a wine made in Italy by Germans for Americans. And that's become kind of the classic blind tasting Italian white wine, which is kind of a shame. So Friuli is in northeastern Italy. It's right on the border of Slovenia. It's pretty close to the sea. And the grape here is Friulano. It takes its name after the region. And it is, it's just, I think the wines are really lovely. A little bit fuller bodied, a little bit oily in texture, but no oak classically. And I don't think this producer is using oak. So it's not going to be an easy wine to blind, but I think he can probably get in the right ballpark. Smells good.
For the red, I chose Barolo. I am a huge lover of Italian wines, and I also love this particular one. Probably like this Barolo more than many others. One of my favorite producers. That's what I started drinking Barolo back in New York when I was like in my really early 20s, and because you can't afford it, and you can't, like, this is as traditional of Barolo as it can get. All neutral oak, very large barrels coming from the heart of Barolo. Also very elegant, very elegant expression of Nebbiolo. Probably, I think one of the first wines that blew me away was Rocca di Castiglione. I think 1989, I had a vintage for my birthday. I don't remember what exact year was it, but like that was one, like this wine was a showstopper for me. I fell in love with the wineries, always supported them, visited them when I was in Piedmont last year. Really like Pietro, he's like this really cool young guy. who's kind of runs the winery with his mom and his sister, Maria Krista and Isabella. And I think this, I also wanted to bring with something with little age on it. I kind of just wanted to open it and have it with Jane. So I think she will have no problem guessing what it is. Because it's, again, as traditional example of this grape variety and the style as it can be. It has a little age on it. It's from 2000, so I don't know. She might take it to Brunello maybe, or like older Chianti Classico, and it shows really well today. I'm like, she's super happy about it.
So for the red wine, this is a Shiraz from Australia. Full disclosure, my husband makes this wine. It is from Geelong, so it's not your typical Barossa South Australian Shiraz, which, you know, when you would taste those wines in flights, they are quite alcoholic, quite oaky, very sort of eucalypt in quality, and that's not this wine. This wine really, to me, smells like old world Syrah. It has kind of the black olive, the savory notes, the black pepper, but on the palate, you definitely get more ripeness and juiciness. So I don't think he's gonna necessarily call Geelong Shiraz, but I think he will get that it's Syrah, and I think he'll be able to take it to the New World too. And maybe he'll say Australia just because that's where I live right now.
When I was just coming up in wine, when I was like an assistant server at 11 Madison and thought like I want to become a sommelier, Jane was the one that helped walk me through not only the court, but also just walk me through how to study, how to blind taste. And we sat and she blind tasted me plenty on wines. So she taught me a lot of how to blind taste and how to taste and a lot about wine in general. So we'll see how good of a blind taster I am still, but I think she definitely is, so.
He is a magical sommelier. He just really understands hospitality, warmth, timing, all those kind of important things to making a meal really special. So I'll be interested to see if blind tasting is a skill he's been working on. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So excited about this. I like how you have your book in the bag as well.
Yeah. Did you see the bag? Did I show it to you?
No.
Yeah, I'll show it to you. There's wine in it, you can't see.
Can't see. I'm super excited about this.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping you're gonna get both wrong. So I'll be, even if I get one, it's gonna look really good on me.
Well, I think honestly for me, the only blind tasting I'm doing right now is with reps when they bring me wine into Attica. I think most of the time when we're blind tasting, there's all this pressure to get the wine right, and that's what it's all about. And I think to me, that's not really the point of blind tasting. Like, yeah, it's nice to get the wine right, and it's good to be able, you have to be able to recognize kind of classic attributes of wines. But for me, it's more about, you know, is this wine a good value? Does it fit inside its classic parameters? And not kind of going into a wine being like, I know this producer, I know what it's going to taste like, and kind of being open.
Like basically just know, like seeing if it fits into what you think this should fit in, and then finding out and like the price point and everything and quality and
yeah, exactly.
What do you think before you found out everything about it.
Yeah, because if it's, a producer you don't normally like or a producer you normally do like, you're usually influenced by that.
Yeah.
All right. This wine, there's definitely some enhanced color to this wine. Doesn't look mature per se, but definitely kind of bright yellow, some golden hues, which could be oak, could be botrytis, probably not skin contact, probably not oxidation.
Do you usually take that long with the first sip?
I do. John, my husband, is always kind of, it's like, come on, keep moving. But for me, it's like, when I work with, people tasting, I think to me, a lot of the structure presents itself the longer the wine's on your palate. I think if you kind of spit too soon, you don't really get the full length and structure presenting itself.
Why did you never teach me about that?
And then, you have to keep moving too if you're doing a time tasting, obviously. But I think for me, that kind of the first sip I take some time with. And I only probably will, if I'm kind of going through the grade classically, I'll only taste it 3 times. Once before I do the nose, once before I do the palate, and then once before I make my initial conclusion. And that's it.
Not to fatigue yourself too much.
There's some serious ripeness to this wine, some serious body, a good bit of alcohol that doesn't seem out of balance by any means. Good acid though, definitely persistent acid. At first, I toyed around with this as richness from botrytis, but I think it's oak. I think there's some expensive French oak on this wine. The nose is a bit muted. I think this is oak Chardonnay, but for me, it could be a riper style from Burgundy. It could definitely be California. Could even be like a more modern style from Italy. It could be Australian. It doesn't, it's not classic Australia for me. Classic Australia has more of that sort of matchstick nose to it. This is more kind of...
When you say classic Australia, do you usually, in terms of Chardonnay, do you go in any particular place, or do you kind of just group it all together?
Well, I guess if you were gonna get Australian Chardonnay on an exam or on a blind tasting flight, I think it would be probably Margaret River.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, that's the one that I'm most familiar with after we did the Western Australia. So Margaret River, I got those down. It's also really funny, to taste the Chin Chin clone against other clones, especially because they do grow them there. It's my thing with class Chardonnay from there that I can't how do you even pick it up in terms of it's such a different place, but also native rootstock. What is making Chardonnay from there tasting like Chardonnay from there? Is it climate? Is it clone? Is it rootstock? Is it just
is it
all
winemaking
of those
too?
Winemaking as well.
I think right now in Australia, it's a lot of people are doing work with solids, and they're getting that kind of very flinty matchstick sort of nose, and with kind of very moderate barrique aging, and it's kind of feels like this Burgundian sort of style. And to me, this is more lees and oak, and not so much of that kind of the flinty reductive style. But it definitely could be Australian too. Should I make a final call?
Yeah, go for it.
I'll say, why not? I will say Chardonnay from Friuli, from 2016.
Producer?
Oh, I'm not gonna call a producer. Okay, if I had to call producer, I'd call someone like Yerman.
Okay.
That's using a little bit of oak.
Not me, honey.
If you brought me on, I'd be very, very pleased with that. Okay, wine number two. Wine number two has a very unique color. There's a bit of turbidity, so like a bit of kind of a haziness. Definitely some rim variation to this wine. So it's, it's garneted at the center, but towards the rim, it's very sort of brick orange in color. But yeah, definitely some sort of dissolved solids in the wine itself. Yeah, the nose confirms that this wine is quite mature. Lots of dried fruit flavors, and just kind of these, nutty oxidative notes to the wine. Old wine can be quite difficult to blind because sometimes a lot of that primary varietal character
Gets dissolved.
It's not as forefront anymore. So you really have to kind of dig deep, and usually structure helps with that.
I'm trying to see if I can keep the wine in my mouth as long as you already can.
It's a skill. You got to work towards it. So I guess first I'm looking kind of for that Italian structure, if that's there, acid and tannin, which can dissolve with age. So that's a little bit tough, but its structure is not as high as I would like. The color also, Italian wine stays very kind of clear and brilliant for a very long time. Obviously, it will develop some turbidity and solids at a certain point. And you're also looking at what wines are going to age this long. I don't think, you're probably looking at Beaujolais. You're looking at wines that classically would be aged for a long time. And then I'm also kind of looking at oak. I don't think there's a huge oak presence on this wine, but again, those primary flavors are gone, so you're more looking at almost structuring elements.
Would you see something like that on a master exam, or is it usually fresher stuff and not as much age?
I think you definitely could. I don't know. This is quite a bit of age, it seems like to me. I don't know if you would necessarily see something quite this old, but definitely you need to practice mature wines for that exam. Those will pop up. Interesting wine. I don't think it's Bordeaux. I'm not getting any sort of pyrazines. There's some tannin, but there's really not much acidity at all. And there's a little bit of heat. There's like a pretty ripe front palate. The nose is a bit meaty, a bit savory. At this point, it's all this sort of dried red fruit. But I can't get away from this kind of redness up front. So, and the lack of acid really is, there's tannin, but there's not much acid. I would call this Chardonnay Grenache based. But again, I don't feel very confident about that. But I would call it pretty old. I'm trying to think of,
Like the year gap?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's at least 25 years old. Where does that put us? Mid-90s? I'll say, I think it's actually a little bit older than that. I'll say 1989 Chateauneuf du Pape.
Cool. Do you talk about blind tasting in your book, and how do you like talk? Because I think like I flipped through it and never like I haven't gotten a moment to actually read it.
Yeah, you've been busy.
It's like literally when we're doing that shoot in the cellar, and we're just like,
You're like,
oh, that
yeah.
looks cool. That looks cool.
I do talk about blind tasting a bit. It's not, it's definitely not meant to be like a how to pass an exam or how to, but there's a chapter about blind tasting, and I kind of put together these flowcharts, which basically, it's kind of what I did now, because, you know, you go through the whole grid in an exam. But for me, it's like you're really sort of identifying the handful of things about that wine that make it very unique and not anything else. And I think that's what I've really tried to do with blind tasting is, you know, I think it's everyone's instinct, and there's like always this moment of panic when you're like, oh my God, is that this or is it this? And like, I think instead of that, I've really tried to get away from being like, what is that wine? And instead being really dissecting it and being like, okay, well, I don't know what this wine is. Especially with old wine, I feel like
You start losing.
there's rarely like an instinctual put it in your nose, I know what that is. So you really have to kind of parcel it out and be like
acid, tannin, structure, color.
Exactly. And just add them all together. And even though like instinctually I'm not like, Chateauneuf du Pape on this, I added them all up and that's what I got. And it, you know, it may or may not be right.
Sense to you.
But you kind of just have to trust the process.
I'll do it one by one just to build up the suspense.
That's great.
Yeah. It's like, is it this fridge? Is it this fridge? Okay. So, the first one.
Great.
you
Yeah, I
got
don't
the
know why I
Chardonnay.
kind of wanted to go Italy, but that makes sense. And I think in an exam, as I said, I definitely would have called it California.
California, yeah. I was really thinking that you might, from the quality of the wine, I had it quite a bit. It does show pretty ripe today. I remember it being a bit leaner.
Yeah, I would not have called Sonoma Coast on this. It definitely kind of presents as a pretty big wine.
But like ever since being in New York, I don't know if you remember me, I was pretty snobby and like francophile, like just drinking
We all were.
Italian and Burgundy and like don't want to
Yeah.
see or hear anything about anything else. But ever since moving here and going up north a couple of times and like being in California and like trying to support producers who make very honest wine here, kind of fell in love with it quite a bit. So
Honestly, that's how I felt about Australia too, where, you know, I definitely drank mainly European wine when I'm living in New York, and then moving to Australia, I was really excited to explore the wines of those regions, and I think it made me realize that I hadn't given a fair shot to
honestly, the
California
whole
or
concept,
American wine.
whole concept of mod, like going to the place, spending a week, visiting wineries.
It's so cool.
But it put me out of my comfort zone a few times. Like first year, Central Coast of California, I was like, and I just pretty much gotten jumped. Like I don't know anything about. Or like even Rioja, you know your typical like two styles is like this is the Grand Reserva, this is the whites from Viora.
Yeah.
But try
So
to
much
do like
more.
9 wine pairing from just wines from Rioja. You're like, all right, let's see what else is
You have
out
to
there.
find the diversity.
Yeah.
And Rio is cool too, because when I was in Spain last year and drinking like 100% Grenache concrete aged Rioja, and you're like, you just never see that.
And then you start developing, like falling in love with the region again. And like it happened Western Australia. Like Western Australia, I knew the Chardonnay and Cabernet like for the exams and like just literally looking at the map and reading. Never had a bottle of wine from them. Never actually like sit down and
drank a
drank,
bottle.
but actually going there and like learning and seeing. Ready for number 2?
Yeah. I'm very curious about this one.
Again, from fridge.
It is Italian.
It is Italian.
2000. This is more mature than I would expect from this
It is.
wine.
It's that's what I really liked about this wine. It is I actually also brought 2014, and I didn't, same vineyard, same producer. I didn't know, like, should we do older, younger? I was like, oh, let's do like aged
Yeah, for
Barolo.
sure, for sure.
I think for Italians, or like for Italian reds, like, and usually you get like Brunello or Barolo or Chianti Classico, it's like the tannin, like here it's like, even though like the oak tannin is very mellow, and then again, it's all old oak. Like this is, and one of the most elegant crus that they make, but like it's like all the like front mouth, like grape tannin, the skin tannin.
Yeah, the tannin was big, but the acid was a lot lower than I would expect.
Like, I think maybe after the Chardonnay, because like the acid on Chardonnay is pretty like racy.
All right, cool. It's your turn.
All right.
Have you been blind tasting much?
I mean, not as much as, again, I'm not studying right now for any exams or anything, so just working blind tasting more like with guests and like just friends, whoever, like, oh, what do you think this is? And, kind of. Okay, so the color is pretty like pale gold. I don't see any hues to it. Again, can be evidence of oak aging or maybe varietal. Probably not skin contact. I don't know if it's the background. There's a little bit of green hue to it. I don't know if it's the glass or it's maybe a sign of like youthfulness. Okay. So the one thing that jumps out at me from the glass is like this cheese rind, brie kind of like aromas, and that like just smells like kind of like fresh cow's milk brie.
So like, is that for you a Lee's thing? Is it
I like my mind goes straight to Lee's. Like it's like either like a lot of batonnage or maybe a lot of Lee's aging without stirring it, but definitely shows signs of Lee's.
What's the structure of the wine?
One's pretty. Besides that, the nose is still pretty like muted. I don't get a lot of like fruit aromas or flavors or any like tons of floral notes. It's like pretty. Least aroma's pretty dominant. I think structure is like it's a medium to light body. There's not a ton of tannin. There is the acid is like medium. I wouldn't go as far as saying like high acid, so it's medium acid. And pretty like neutral as like just across the board. The wine definitely has weight to it. So, and again, I don't pick up a lot of components of oak, neither on the palate or on the nose. So it's a very neutral oak. Again, the palate confirms that there's like that bright tart, like maybe citrus fruit, like it's like lemon, maybe a little grapefruit. And then again, like that lees, like I do get those like creamy flavors and aromas, maybe like and sour cream, but for me, it's like all I think is like brie rind, like just that. And then that takes me to a couple of places. I'm thinking what wines can be aged on lees for a while, so and not have a lot of influence of oak. So of course, I'm thinking things like Chablis or Chardonnay in general. I also,
Would you expect higher acid though from Chardonnay?
I mean, depending where it's from, and like if I'm gonna say Chablis, I would expect higher acid. Another thing that comes to mind is Muscadet. Again, like something that's been aged at least for a while, but maybe Muscadet, I would expect a little bit more aromatics.
Or acid too.
Or acid as well, just so like higher acid.
Yeah.
So other varietals that can show this way, like I'm pretty kind of like in a monotone sort of characteristics. I wouldn't go far as saying Gruner. Just I feel like if I'm gonna start looking for some like pepper, like white pepper characteristics, I might find it, and then just thinking maybe it's a Gruner with a little age, or maybe a touch of like maybe not Smaragd, like not, it doesn't feel as heavy as Smaragd should be, but also for Gruner, like just like herbaceousness that I would like look for. Like it's
That you
just,
don't see.
I'm not seeing, like for me, it's pretty like least dominant wines.
All right, what are you gonna call?
What else? I don't know how mean you are. I don't know what else this can be. I don't know if you bring like a Friulano or something.
I don't know.
And as I'm sitting with wine, like I think maybe after the chamomile tea washes off my palate, like I do pick up a bit more acid and a bit more like zippiness. So again, so it's a neutral varietal. So I'd go say it's a Chardonnay from Northern Burgundy. So I'd say Chablis with a fair amount of lees aging on it. Probably like something not a Premier Cru or Grand Cru. I would say like something just to the large level, bright tart. Because like I think for me, when you start going up to higher levels of Chablis, you start seeing more ripeness, and this is pretty like green and leesy.
Yeah.
So I would say Chablis, pretty youthful, maybe 2016, something like that.
Cool. Number 2.
All right. The color is like deep ruby. Not very transparent. I can see a little bit, but not much. Not a lot of rim variation. All right, so there's definitely like a little purple to it. On the nose, displays like a lot of like ripe purple fruit, like a lot of plum, a little like blackberry, things like that, and spiciness. Like I get some spice, herbaceousness, touch of rosemary, kind of like maybe black pepper. Definitely some black pepper in it. It feels like there's a little bit of staining as well, and also it's pretty hot. Like I get lots of warm notes from the quality of fruit as well as the, like, I think this wine is definitely like higher alcohol. Because like I do feel the weight of the alcohol, but also like the sensation, the burn it's present. The tannins are very soft though. They're not creepy. They're kind of spread out very well across the palate, and the sides and the front. So I think it's wine definitely you've seen like a decent amount of maceration, but also a little bit of oak. I wonder if it also has this like this woodsy like a branch feel to it. So I wonder if there's a little bit of whole cluster in this wine, or so basically right now I'm thinking few varietals. So depend on the color, I would say like Shiraz, Grenache. I don't know if it's a blend or if it's just Shiraz by itself. A little bit of whole cluster maybe. Fairly useful. Again, I wouldn't say it's older than 5 years. The acid is present. I would say like medium at least, even medium plus. Now, trying to place it, it's warm. It's like I get the quality of the fruit and the alcohol. So I'm not necessarily sure it to be from southern France. It might be from your newly adopted homeland, or maybe not. Like I don't know what you bring. It's like trying to both guess the wine and guess what you bring. But it also like reminds me of some of the Shiraz that I would have from here, from California, even San Ynez Valley, or like if we go up to Sonoma Coast, also some of the Shiraz there can be like that. Plenty of sunshine. Acid is present because of the lateral swing between temperatures day and night.
All right, make a call.
So I would say it is the Shiraz, and I would say it is from Australia. I would say maybe New South Wales, or something. I'm not as versed in tasting wines from Australia.
Canberra district does make Shiraz like this.
What else did I have recently Shiraz from? But it doesn't seem like Barroso to me, because there's like more concentrated, more like less southern Australia, maybe more like Victoria, New South Wales, like somewhere in that realm. So I would say it's an Australian Shiraz.
Cool. Vintage?
2014, 15, 14, let's say 5 years.
Cool. Do you like the wines?
I do like the wines. Both wines are something I would drink. So it's something that I would pour. Yeah. I really like the cheesy, cheese rindy, leesy character of the white wine, which now, after the red, shows a little bit of like fruit on the nose as well. I get like a little bit of tropical, like pineapple or.
Yeah, I think it's definitely opening up a bit.
Yeah, and as it's warming up as well, because like the glass was a little bit.
Yeah.
Cold at first.
Shall I reveal?
No.
You did a great job. You honestly crushed it.
Just didn't get anything right?
No, you did. So the first wine is Friulano, which is hilarious. I cannot believe you said that. But I feel like, honestly, the way you described it, you should have been at least talking about Pinot Grigio, you know? In terms of lees and acid level and lack of oak.
But the thing is, like, Pinot Grigio is like, I go to that when I can't guess anything else. It's like, oh, it doesn't display, like, anything. So, but I didn't pick up, like, Pinot Grigio, like, I threw it out. I'm pretty sensitive to, like, phenolic bitterness.
Yeah, true.
And I just didn't pick it up on this wine. So I was like, what would have lees age? And then it was like I mean, Friulano, but like, why would you bring Friulano?
Why not? I mean, as I said, I think it's really fun to taste non-classic or non-kind of examinable wines just because there's less pressure to kind of get it right, even though you named that grape, and more just you really get to pay attention to what the wine is about. And now you go to your restaurant and you can say, well, you know, I can recommend this to someone who drinks Chablis. It is 13.5% alcohol, so there's definitely some bite to it. And
oh yes,
some Geelong Shiraz. So this is micro wines. This is
I think I know the winemaker a little bit.
Yeah, I do. It's my husband. It's a micro negociant label where he's basically just found some cool vineyards he wants to work with. This is off the Bannockburn Estate Vineyard, which is pretty cool. So for his first wine ever from 2018. Yeah, I think it's lovely. I think it's like, it definitely really smells and tastes like Syrah, but you still get a really nice kind of new world fruit quality from it.
Yeah, it's like the ripeness is there, the fruit is balanced. Like it's not all secondary. It's like tasty.
Yeah.
It's just like you just want to drink it.
Yeah,
like,
and that's honestly that's what Australian wine has been for me, where it's varietally correct and delicious.
And it's like, and it's so varietally correct that I didn't like. I was like,
You
know how like when you
else.
blind taste, you don't want to pick up the glass, smell it, and call it. Like, you know, it's like you don't be like,
Yeah.
Syrah.
Because sometimes you kind of go down a rabbit hole, but if it's kind of that clear, then there's nothing else you can call it. And I think
so
this
like
one really
by
is.
the book, Syrah, like the color, the appearance, the aromas, flavors, and again, like it's like I did not think old world. Just
Oh yeah.
it's just like it's distinctive for what it is.
Cool.
So
Awesome. Great job.
John did a good job.
You crushed it. Well, thanks for joining me here today, Andrey. This was really fun.
Thank you for joining me. No, this was awesome.